Hello, hi there. I'm Joshua Griffin. I'm the head of Interactive Media here at Noroff. I'm going to be going through a presentation on interactive media, going through the animation and the games pathways. If you've got any questions, throw them into the YouTube chat and we'll be able to answer them at the end. So what I want to go through are animation and games, and going through a little bit about what we do, what you can get out of the course. So in animation, we go through lots of different topics. We look at character animation, modeling, texturing, storyboarding, as well as storytelling, shot design and composition, so how we actually put things on the screen. We do a little bit of VFX, and then rigging and technical animation, so putting bones into the models in order to make them move. And then rendering as well, because we need to visualize things on the screen. We need to be able to see what we're doing. So in animation, we have lots of different topics that we cover. We also have the same kind of topics in games as well. Slightly different, we look at gameplay design, so how you're actually making the games. Game mechanics, modeling again, digital sculpting, texturing, and lighting the games. So that's both in terms of real-time and baked. And then coding as well. So we introduce coding with Unity. And play and game theory. So the kind of ethics of what we're making, but also game theory in terms of strategy. And then UI and UX design, so the things that carry your health bars. So our course is structured in 3 years, and games and animation, as they're under one umbrella with interactive media, share some courses as well. So they've got shared and individual courses. So the shared courses in year one, we go through what we call PBL, so problem-based learning. It's your first course, sort of an onboarding into Noroff, show you guys what we do. And we go through a kind of a small writing course, but also a little research course, just looking at games and animations. Then form and context, we introduce 3D modeling, so you get stuck in quite quickly. And then other shared courses, narrative, which is a bit of a red thread between everything that we teach. So every course has an element of narrative to it. And then we've got Studio 1 and then later Studio 2 as well. And these are self-directed courses. So you take on a project that's roughly constrained and you kind of experiment within that. And they're quite long. And then in year 2, editing and conceptualization. And then Studio 2. And then in year 3, all the courses are shared in year 3. So design for interactivity, procedural animation, which is kind of a research course, so more advanced topics. Industry studies, getting you ready for industry when you leave. And then your final bachelor project, which will last the entire year. In animation, your specialist courses, you'll be doing rigging 1 and rigging 2. So learning how to create your characters and make them move. 3D animation 1, 2, and 3 go through different technical aspects of actually animating. So probably body mechanics, things like facial rigs, and then anything maybe procedural later. And then animation craft, you'll be going through storyboarding and how to craft story and make storyboards in what are called animatics. In games, the individual courses are gameplay, so we actually make board games. We get some of those printed as well. So again, it's an onboarding into creating games without having to think about coding or modeling. And then game assets 1, 2, and 3, we focus on different elements of parts that we put into games, into the game engine. Level design, again, it's kind of what it does on the tin. We create a level. We give you assets to play around with. And then technical direction, it's quite an interesting one. We group everyone up into a single kind of virtual studio, and then everyone creates a game within quite a short amount of time. And then ludic studies. It's more of a theoretical understanding of why we play and what we're making. So a little overview of all of the courses that we've got. So in terms of how we teach, what I've done is structured a little bit of a normal week for first-year students. For example, on Monday, you might have a 9 a.m. lecture for 1 hour, and then we'll go into the lab afterwards, could be in the same room, for 2 to 3 hours for some more practical support. So that could be a tutorial on some more technical aspects of how to model. After that, it's free study time, so you're able to use your afternoon to continue on that project. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, we repeat the same format, but for different courses. So on Monday, you might have PBL. Tuesday, you might have something like form and context. And then on Wednesday, you might have a more specialist course. Each course we have is either a semester long, so that's 15 weeks, or half a semester, so 7 to 8 weeks, depending. Apart from one course, which is your bachelor project, which is the whole year. Thursday and Friday, very roughly, especially for first-year students, will be free study days to work on your projects. So you'll be able to either do your part-time work or work on the projects that you've been given for the week. When you graduate, we have titles that we're aiming for graduates for animation and games. So for animation, you could be looking at becoming an animator. It's kind of the main role. A rigging artist or technical animator, so setting up models. Concept artist or storyboard or layout artists, or what we call a render wrangler, in order to try and render out shots. It has a lot more technical aspects behind it. And then the industries are quite broad as well, so film, TV, and web. We usually think about film and TV when we think about animating, but also games, health and e-learning, mobile applications, and the engineering and military sectors as well. And then for games, job titles, game designer, environment artist and character artist, so that's creating things like models and textures, level designer, and then game developer, which is kind of a catch-all for things like coding. And then in terms of industries, we've obviously got AAA gaming and mobile gaming, but board games and tabletop as well, e-learning, and again, engineering and military in terms of simulations. Could be quite an interesting field. We've missed health off that list, but that's another one too. So in terms of admissions, we always appreciate those with passion. I've been asked to draw up a little list of who we want. So anyone that wants to create, draw, and tell stories. So to drive, so your drive to make animated work. The field demand a lot of knowledge, a lot of work, and if you don't have the motivation to do it, it's probably going to be challenging. So your motivation is pretty much the most important thing. In terms of qualifications, I've got 3-year upper secondary education or a vocational education certificate, or an admission for prior learning. But if you've got any questions about that, please just ask our team. The courses are all taught in English and may require IELTS 5 or higher. Super. And then after you've graduated, you could either look for work, as we've said, or further studies. So with the bachelor degree, you can always apply to higher education, so things like masters or doctoral. So examples might be masters in digital arts, animation, or games. And there's 3 different types that we aim for, which is MA, MSc, or MRes. Okay, now for a little look at student work. These are our show reels, so I'll just play this one for you. Awesome. So that was our animation showreel, and we have the games one coming up next. I think this will be it. Awesome. And now for questions. So the first was, do you have any experience or do you need any experience with creating animations? No, absolutely not. You don't really even need any experience with drawing. It's just a nice to have. So if you've done anything before, or if you want to experiment a little bit before you come here, then that's great. But otherwise, you don't need any experience. We teach you everything that you need here. It's just that one thing that I mentioned earlier. You have to have that want, that motivation. Is everything taught in English? Yes. I think the team only has one Norwegian speaker, maybe. But yes, everything's taught in English. And what hardware, software do I need? And should I get this in advance or wait? So we have a list on our website on the Games and Animation page. It's a little drop down at the bottom as to what kind of hardware and software that we expect. If you're going to be on campus, you don't need any hardware or software because we supply that. Online, you'll need to have a computer of certain specs, and then we have links as to which software we'll be using. Most of the software is free, so it shouldn't cost you too much money. Are teachers helpful in the job search process? Absolutely. So actually what we have is we have an alumni process where when you graduate and even during, in terms of when you're studying, we post up jobs and bits of projects that we get through other channels, basically, and try and hook up students to different projects while you're studying and afterwards. How is the study structured for online students? Is it the same as on campus? And yes, it is. So what we do in the IM department is we have blended learning. So as I'm talking to you now, this is kind of what we do. We have a class of students in a lab or in an auditorium and talk to them while we're streaming at the same time. And what we try and do, we try our hardest, is to answer questions in class and online at the same time, or within the same space. We also record the majority of our content as well. Unless it's going to be feedback-based, we pretty much record and then host all of the videos of the content we make. What is the difference between campus, online, and online plus? Excellent. Okay, so campus is on Christian's end, so physical students here in the labs with us. They get to interact with us. We get to see their work quite a lot. Online is purely through online communication channels. So we get to see, if you share screen, we can see your work then. But otherwise, it's through some kind of VoIP. And then Online Plus is having a desk and a kind of lab environment in currently Oslo, but effectively being an online student in terms of how we contact you and how we communicate with you. What are the exams like? Exams is a fun word because we don't really use it that much. We kind of use the term submissions instead because you give us your projects. So we have quite a strong practical component with the work that we expect. So if you were to create an animation, it's the video of that animation plus a little bit of writing. So there's no real sort of sit-down exam or sort of quiz element to any of our studies. Well, these are good. Is it possible to combine the studies with a job? It is, but it's not recommended. If you've got a part-time job, it's definitely doable, but you need to have quite a lot of motivation to make sure you get through the content. The studies are effectively full-time, so you'll need to make sure that you've got enough time to complete them as well as your job. But saying that, because if you're going to be an online student especially, because we do record all of our content, you can study kind of ish any time. However, there are specific times in the schedule that you'll need to be present. Can I switch between animation and games? It's challenging, not really, but it's definitely something that you can talk to us about if you start on a program and want to switch up later. It's something that we could possibly look at. Okay, super. They were great questions. Excellent. If you do have any more questions after this broadcast, then you can obviously contact us. So see on our webpage, we've got education@noroff.no. Otherwise, I think that's it from me.